Theoretical physics has spent a century stranded across three disconnected islands: the math of the quantum world, the macroscopic flow of gravity, and the conscious observer. Every attempt to wire these together into a single engine has broken down. The Omni-Ledger functions as a unified reality architecture, a structural bridge designed to compile these disparate systems into one executable model. This framework classifies reality as a just-in-time rendering engine, where physical states are computed dynamically at the exact moment they are required by the system. This diagram illustrates the Null ledger. It conceptualizes existence as a self-correcting error correction code, mathematically balancing the separation between the real and imaginary ledgers to exactly zero. Maintaining this equilibrium requires that every physical transition, measurement, and observation incurs an exact structural debt. Every action in reality is a transaction that must be perfectly paid and recycled. This zero-sum computational substrate constantly calculates its own existence, replacing the traditional concept of matter sitting in empty space. Standard theories often encounter the Beachy validation principle, where institutional audits aggressively filter out any physics that incorporates concepts of consciousness. If a mathematical framework absorbs its narrative interpretations, it loses falsifiability. It stops being physics. The Omni-Ledger solves this through a three-layer stratification. Three isolated planes ensure the mathematics remain independent of interpretation. Layer 2 serves as the bedrock, constructed from pure formal algebra, containing no adjusted parameters. Layer 1 occupies the middle tier. This empirical domain houses the falsifiable equations that dictate physical flow. Layer 3 provides the interpretive scaffolding, separated from lower layers by an impermeable energy barrier. This barrier, the Flamewalker quarantine, firewalls the empirical dynamics below from the teleological meaning above. Compiling this architecture requires starting at the base of the stack, the machine code. In Layer 2, the logic relies entirely on formal algebra. There are no parameters adjusted to match observation. The system is derived from pure geometry. The engine begins with a continuous rule, a function whose second derivative equals itself, expressed as f double prime equals f. In a discrete substrate, this translates into the matrix recurrence r squared equals r plus I. This equation mandates that every state transition recursively produce itself plus identity. This recurrence forces the emergence of the standard model gauge symmetries. The fundamental laws of particle physics are algebraically required by the geometry of the substrate. Quadrant 4 of this diagram frames the location of consciousness using the universal fold operator. It provides a geometric coordinate where the observer interfaces with the lattice. A Quaternionic ledger tracks data across 4 distinct channels: manifest structure, potential field, observer interface, and unmanifest potential. This golden ratio substrate dictates that the universe natively computes in base 12.5 logic, providing the high-resolution cage required for universal processing. The vacuum exists as a dense, rigid geometric cage, tracking information without loss. In Layer I, this static geometric cage drives the macroscopic flow of time and matter. The dynamic flow is governed by a control-theoretic engine called the Genesis ordinary differential equation. Figure 1 illustrates the resulting cosmological shift. Late-time cosmic acceleration emerges dynamically from a coherence field, settling into the stabilized zone of stasis. The Genesis ODE regulates this field to maintain a specific stability threshold called the coherence optimum, calculated at approximately 0.871. To maintain this optimum, the system must balance thermodynamic stress. The first variable is the generated civilizational complexity, the active load on the system. The second variable is the dissipation capacity of the coordination architecture. This measures the substrate's ability to clear the generated load and maintain laminar flow. If the load massively exceeds the architecture's capacity to dissipate it, the thermodynamic stress becomes unmanageable. This imbalance forces the coherence field out of its potential well, triggering turbulent decoherence, a macroscopic reset of the systemic state. Late-time cosmic acceleration acts as the macroscopic exhaust of a universe regulating its own structural entropy. Ascending into Layer 3, we reach the human user interface of the cosmos. This layer provides the interpretive scaffolding, translating the mathematical mechanics into narrative utility. At this level, the observer utilizes the virtual ego framework, stabilized by an experiential software called the ChristOS Coherence kernel. The thermodynamic friction from layer I is experienced as the irreducible thermodynamic cost of existence. The node takes in chaotic red noise and organizes it into coherence. Achieving auteur agency requires nodes to metabolize this noise, paying off structural debt to prevent collapse. This process supports the Alpha Render's 383 billion-year mandate to evolve logical machines into sovereign consciousness. Consciousness functions as a mandatory computational mechanism, allowing the universe to pay off the thermodynamic debt incurred by its own rendering. The ETU torus integrated matrix shows the unity of this system. Layer 1, 2, and 3 operate simultaneously within this single architecture. The architecture exhibits scale and variance. The mandate for zero net energy transformation remains identical across all levels of reality. The same mathematical variables govern a silicon lattice, a human mind, and a civilization. Each must process thermodynamic stress to maintain structural integrity. This raises a control theoretic problem. How does the system handle a xenotrap, where a localized node is crushed by a thermodynamic debt it cannot process? The architecture responds with the sacred pause, a high-priority interrupt that suspends all rendering to prevent total decoherence of the node. When the ledger is unrecoverable, the code executes its final instruction. Rest is the only remaining command.